Well, Derek, you co-wrote this movie with Chad Christopher, and I wanted to ask a little bit about how the concept of the film really became fleshed out and how it came together, where we see the start of the film.
Sure. It started as Chad. It's sort of based on his family lore. So his family sort of went through this. Everglade City is a true story, something very similar to what actually the feature is like. And it was sort of it was a pilot that he gave me originally over 3 years ago that had all these really cool ideas, but wasn't sort of flushed out by any means. But I loved what was there, and I said I wanted to be a part of it. We started developing it for television, and then a producer or a production company producer, Bedford Falls, um, uh, had talked to me about potentially doing this as a feature on spec. And so it sort of pivoted, and then it became a feature, and it was sort of just meant to be. And from that, there was always a thought of doing a proof of concept, and the proof of concept evolved into becoming a true short film. And so it sort of just kind of all aligned in a really cool way, to make this into, I think, what is a great standalone short, and also a really cool proof of concept for the feature. So it's a two for one.
You just talked about the film setting a little bit. It's set in the 1970s Florida Everglades. I live
1969 in Florida. Sorry.
okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
1969 in Florida. I do live in Florida. The Everglades is kind of like not that far from where I live.
Right.
Although it's a lot different in
Are
my
you out
neighborhood.
there running drugs?
I'm not incriminating myself, but I wanted to ask, how the backdrop plays its own kind of significant role in this short film, in the development of the storyline and the family dynamics as well.
I think, and Victor can answer that from a character standpoint. I think because we didn't actually shoot in the Everglades, or we didn't really choose to shoot, I mean, choices, a budget as well, in a place that really had that glades feeling. I think it was important just to feel that it was rural. And so we shot 2 hours outside of LA, actually in the same place that I shot my first feature, in a place called San Ynez, which is beautiful, country, horse country, and wine country. And we sort of just used the energy from that setting and tried to be truthful to the characters as it would relate to them being in the Florida Everglades. And then we also shot a little bit more of it in Los Angeles as well. But in terms of the story as a whole, it's a huge part of the story. As the feature is getting made in January, we were just having a meeting yesterday talking about how really the Glades are a character in the story, and how we have to really give service to it and really be honest to everything about it. And so it's going to be a huge factor in the feature. I think in the short, it was less of a visual factor, certainly. I think Victor can speak to whether or not it influenced him as an actor. But yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah, again, I live in Florida. The Everglades are around the corner for me too much, but certainly the grittiness and the humidity can make
Yeah.
anyone a little ornery. And Victor's character is, kind of the eldest among the siblings, and kind of rough and antagonistic. What kind of breakdown, Victor, then did you kind of receive, and how did you really kind of construct your portrayal of Robert?
I think that I have had certain antagonistic interactions with family members myself, so that was easy to draw on. I think that I love the way that Derek created the social dynamic between the whole family, and the dialogue really supported that, and it just, everybody really came prepared and embodied their characters, and so it just kind of gelled together for us. um, Being a cranky kind of older sibling that looks down on kind of the golden child brother, and the rest of the family that doesn't quite understand what I have to go through to make everything happen now that our father is gone. Um, it felt natural to fall into that just because of experiences I've had in my life. And like I said, with the dialogue on the other actors there, it was easy.
I mean, I was gonna say Robert is this kind of ruthless, uncompromising man. Is he someone who feels beholden to his family or trapped by these broken dynamics that you kind of were talking about a little bit?
I think he definitely, he's deferential to his mother. You can see at the dinner scene when she says something and he backs down. But I think that um, he feels that he knows best because he's the one that's in the trenches doing everything. And so he ultimately feels like maybe he's not going to go head to head with the family, but he'll find a way to bring them around to his way of thinking.
There's certainly this kind of palpable tension that exists between your character Robert and the character Larry. Is what is it that really kind of drives the relationship, both past and present, for these two characters then?
Derek, you go ahead on that because
Sure. I think it's a complicated relationship. There's a pretty significant age gap between the two of them. And Larry was the golden boy who could do no wrong. And Robert was the oldest son who could do everything wrong. And I think that a lot of resentment was built up because of that. And there's a lot of, um, you know, um, pent up resentment because of the fact that they're not ones to talk about their feelings. That's they're not that kind of family. So this is, in some ways, this is Robert releasing some of that energy in some way, by he loves his brother. I think it's almost a way for him to connect to him, and for him to have, it's just this relationship that has been, teasing. Then it sort of builds and builds, and oh, he's the golden boy who goes to war and can do no wrong. And I think that, and meanwhile, Robert is doing what Victor said, which is staying home and doing the work that needs to get done in order for the family to continue to survive. And I think that he feels that he's not being recognized for the work that he's doing, and that builds a lot of resentment. And then Larry comes home and basically is offered anything. What do you want to do? You want to work for the camps? Okay, you can work for the camps. And that's just not okay with Robert, because I feel that Robert is just not okay with someone stepping in and sort of not putting in the work. And that's sort of where I think that specific resentment comes from. And I do think that Larry is sort of knows that that's going to kind of bubble. And that's why Larry sort of immediately reacts to his mother and says, Mom, leave it alone, leave it alone. And it just, bubbles, and it sort of boils over a little bit. So I think, in my opinion, that's where it comes from.
Certainly that we get the scene at the dinner, and they're talking about like, well, okay, Larry, what are you gonna do now that you're home? And he's like, I don't, I don't know. And then, Robert's like, well, you have to have a plan. Like, you can't just sit, around. But he doesn't expect the mom, it seems also, to be like, well, just join the camper. Like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to be part of the family dynamic again. Like, you're going to be a part of the family affairs, the family business, what of our, our income. And she sort of like just expects that as at the same time too.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that that feels sort of status quo for Robert, because even before he left, that was the kind of treatment that Larry would always get. And I think Robert's sick of it. And so while he's been gone, things have been a lot more difficult. Robert has had to really pick up the slack because of the loss of their father. And so he's really doing it all himself. Yeah, he has help from Uncle John and he has people that help him, but at the end of the day, it really is all Robert, and he really isn't getting the recognition of being the person who's holding things together. And so I think that there's a lot of passive aggressive resentment that's lurking underneath there. And I just have to say that I've known Victor a long time personally. We met in our 20s in New York, and we stayed friends ever since. I'm very thankful for that. And I've followed Victor's work, and I've always thought he was a great actor, and I've always loved his work. But I really felt that this was an opportunity for Victor to tap into something that I haven't really seen him have the opportunity to do much. And I knew that he would nail it because I know who he is as a human being as well as an actor. And I just have to say that he nailed it. Like, I think that he did an incredible job in this. And everybody I know who knows Victor's work, and some people who know him personally, have come up to me and said, they didn't even know that Victor had this in him. And I think that's not in a way of saying that like Victor sucks as an actor. It's not that at all. It's just that, he does a lot of work where he's, a very handsome husband. Yes, there are problems and they go through things, but it isn't this kind of weighted, dark energy. And I just think Victor tapped into it in such a beautiful way that it's just awesome. And everybody who's seen it has just been truly blown away by his work in this. And I'm thrilled with what he did.
Dude, thank you very much. That means a lot. I really appreciate that from a personal standpoint, as a friend, but also as somebody whose work I also respect, being on set and seeing you be the captain of the ship in such a calm, cool, collected manner, have a very clear vision, having developed this idea, working with the actors, all of it. I was really, really proud to see you shining and just being amazing at what you're doing.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brother.
So you can see we're obviously good friends, and I want Victor to be in the feature, and I think it's super exciting, and I because we know each other for so long. I mean, 24 years maybe, or 20 something years. Um, People that know us both, for them to come up to me and say, "Holy shit!" Like, I didn't recognize Victor. Like, he just came out like that's to me that's the ultimate flattery, because Victor works a lot and he does really good work across the board. But here he is tapping into this sort of dark, resentful, he just nailed it. And I think that it wouldn't have worked the way it did had he not brought that energy, because I think the audience has connected to their sort of the energy and the relationship between Larry and Robert, but also they have seen that there is a sense of caring underneath the facade of Robert's sort of being really nasty to Larry. That what lurks underneath is, A, he saves his life in the short, literally, and B, the things that he's saying, while they may not be peaches and roses in terms of how he's phrasing it, he is trying to say what he does believe is best for the family, for Larry. That scene in the car where he's talking about what he's had to do, it's really to say, listen, if you're going to be a part of this, like, you're going to listen to what I have to say, and you're going to, do the grunt work or whatever it is that needs to get done. But I don't want to hear any bullshit, because I've been doing this for a long time, and you're just going to jump in and think you're going to take over and run with the ship. It's not going to work that way. And it comes from a place of care. And I think that came across in his performance, which is really awesome and nuanced. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Um,
much.
I love Victor's charm and roles like we get to see from like Hallmark and things like that. But I'm actually someone who watched Victor's work in the show Motherland Fort Salem,
Mhm.
and that I know about like him and this kind of like bubbly complex character, like bubbly when I say like the darkness bubbling like underneath the surface type of
The
bubbling.
cauldron.
Yeah, and how polarizing Victor can be. And this role in your short film, River of Grass, it really takes that to another nuanced level, another complexity layer that he brings to this darkness that is so polarizing, and that you kind of don't expect from Victor, but it's
Right.
so wonderful and, like I said, so compelling watching because your acting just adds just again another layer, another tier to what we get to see between the characters and their dynamics, and it just really complements everything so exceptionally. And
Yeah.
I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure I did compliment you on that as well.
And I think the whole family nailed it. I think we were lucky that
100%.
we were able to assemble friends because I've been an actor for most of my career that are actors, and cast a few people, and it really gelled. We didn't have much time. I did kind of want us to do a rehearsal, which we did do, and I think that was really important to the process. And I like before the feature, there will be a week of rehearsal because it frees you up. It just frees you up in a way that is so important, and saves time when you're actually shooting. It's great. And when we were doing the rehearsal, you could just see that everybody was making interesting choices, and that everybody was going to bring something really strong to the table, and that I wasn't going to have to worry about performance, that I was really going to have to kind of just hone it in terms of performance, and who's doing what and blocking, and then focus on really directing. So I was thankful. The cast across the board was really awesome.
Mhm.
In the
Agreed.
beginning of the film, we see fireworks, which sets off Larry's PTSD, and then in the end, we also see fireworks, but Larry has a different reaction to them, kind of just staring as they explode, and the lights kind of flicker and flash across his face. And Derek, maybe you can speak to kind of what this moment really symbolizes for him in coming home and having such these two contrasting experiences with this light and darkness that we get within both the character and the family.
Yeah, sure. I think it's definitely stemming from the PTSD that he's dealing with, and the PTSD that he's dealing with is very layered. It's not just the fact that he served in Vietnam and fought in Vietnam, and was a part of some of the most intense battles that kind of happened in Vietnam, some famous fights, but also, and this is subtext because it's not talked about in the short, but also he lost somebody that he loved, and that was really traumatizing for him. And so that's something that he's carrying as well. And so I think that he just got home, and it's sort of like who knows what he's going to be like. And I think if anything, Robert kind of sniffs a little bit of what the like this is, goddamn, you did see some action over there. He knows that something intense is going on. That's also part of what I think drives the conversation in the car. But really, that ending is a moment of stillness where Larry realizes how bad it really is. And that's the first time, and he just got home. And for him to kind of have a moment alone in stillness, see the fireworks, it then just brings him right back to what happened when he fought overseas and the loss that he suffered. And it's very painful for him. So really what you're seeing and hearing is our actual audio cues of war and things like that are mixed in with the sound of fireworks and choppers and things like that. So he's really reliving it. And he's scared. He's scared. I think he just did something terrible, and I don't think that he knew that he could even do something like that. I think, if anything, Larry had a moment where he almost blacked out. And luckily, Robert saved his life. But that's really what that moment is. It's really a moment of holy shit, I'm in trouble.
And because you don't have a lot of that backstory, I feel like as a viewer, you can make up a story in your head. That's one of the things I love about it too, is you can
Totally.
kind of go down the path and be like, what that is. When I saw it, I thought, going along with what Derek said is, and then building on that a little bit, is he came home from war thinking he was going to not have to do all this stuff anymore. And what he's realizing now is he's leaving one war and he's about to get into another one. And this
Mm.
is the tears, is that this is his realization that this is what the rest of his life is going to be. It's just constant fighting, constant war, constantly losing people. And it is beautiful. Like, I love when movies do that. They leave you with, you make it up in your head. And I think that's so much more powerful than spoon feeding people exactly how they should think and feel, and letting the people decide on their own and making up their own story and letting it hit that emotionally for them.
Yeah, totally agree. 100%.
Well, my last question was really going to be, what you kind of hope lingers, or people really take away from watching the short film version of River of Grass.
Go ahead, Victor.
Well, for me, I think it's a view into a life that a lot of people don't have. I think it's a view into family dynamic. It's a reminder that life is messy. I think it's a loss of innocence. I think that it's just realizing how painful and difficult war is, and losing people that you love. I think it just really leaves us with a lot of thoughts about how painful life can be. And also, if we're not careful with our lives, if we let our lives get out of control and out of hand, how painful life can be.
Yeah, great. I think, yeah, I piggybacking on that, I agree with everything he said. I think that I really would like the audience ideally to just be able to feel that trauma that Larry is going through, and to really connect with how scary it is, and that the future is unknown and frightening. And I think that I believe that the PTSD worked really well in the short film, in terms of having a limited amount of time, but letting that arc um, reach its sort of summit. I think within the short worked really well, and so I think I want the audience to to really connect to that, and to A, to want to see more, and B, to really feel that trauma that he's going through, and be able to say he has a really um, dark road ahead of him, and that's that's scary, and I think it worked pretty well.